So taking a day or two break away from recording and uploading scouting report videos because I need a little bit of a mental break. But good news is I got all the QBs graded. Those videos are now all up on the channel. If I felt they were worth doing a video about at all, I did them. And if I didn't, that means that your guy that you might be asking about probably has a non-draftable grade as it is. Next up, I'll be moving on to wide receivers. So stay tuned throughout the week. You're going to see probably massive drops of wide receivers. And this gives me a couple of days to get caught up. Like I'm in scramble mode right now, but making some progress. In the meantime, asked you guys to submit some questions for a Q&A video, and you did. Reminder, the Twitter handle is in the description box. Make sure you follow me on there. And while you're at it, if it's your first time checking out this channel, make sure you subscribe. Let's go ahead and get started. Kiper_III asked, what criteria do you look for when considering whether a football contributor, non-coach or player, should be admitted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame? Has Mel Kiper and Mike Florio done enough to earn entry into the Hall of Fame by your criteria? Mike Florio, hell no. Mel Kiper, different conversation. When you think about Mel Kiper, you think about the NFL draft. When you think about the NFL draft, you think about Mel Kiper. When you think about the presentation of the league, you think about how the NFL draft became its own 2 and now 3-day media monster and ratings bonanza and became an event in and of itself. That, in no small part, is largely due to Mel Kiper and his decades of work at ESPN. You might not always like his draft takes. You might not always think he's the most plugged in anymore, but you cannot deny his impact. When you talk about contributors, you're thinking about people that changed the game. You're thinking about people that had a sizable, significant impact, like Ed Sable, Steve Sable type of individuals. Like, there's no question they had sizable, significant impact on the growth of the game of football. I could argue that Mel Kiper did as well. Even though it was in one scope, in one focus, you can't deny it. Like, you will always associate him with the NFL draft and the NFL draft with him, period. So when I think about something like that, that to me, if you're thinking about a contributor, I know it's way out there and we typically don't induct media members, but he would be one of those ones that I could definitely make a strong argument that you could. Let's say some of you guys out there. Let me know in the comments. Geo Knows asks, do you think college players who opted out of playing in 2020 will have a higher chance of not meeting expectations or even busting out? Geo, it's a good question. While I might disagree slightly with you about the whole notion of if they sat out, that automatically means you don't want them. I think that's a little silly. I get it. It's kind of an old school, kind of dated, silly philosophy. That said, I agree. There's a lot more risk with this draft, especially for those guys that sat out the entire year. The Jamar Chases of the world, the Rashawn Slaters of the world, etc. You start to really worry, like, that's an entire year of development. That's an entire year of live football they did not play. I think there's certainly higher boom-bust potential with some of those guys, and it will give me some pause when thinking about drafting them and where I'd be drafting them, especially in the round 1 category. So I think there could be a higher chance of that. And even for some of these guys that did play but only played maybe 6 games or 8 games, they didn't truly play the full season, like there are some impacts there. I can't dismiss that. I think it's a good call-out. Shay Maynard at Shay Durr asks, Jeff, do you think the Bears should trade out of the first round this year? This draft is pretty deep with QBs, wide receivers, and O-line. If there was a new general manager in the fold, I would potentially advocate for that a little bit and say peel the hell out of 20 and accumulate some additional draft capital because you're not in a great space in terms of the salary cap, and dumb Dick Pace has depleted them with draft pick capital over recent years with his panicky trade-up heavy ways. But this time, no. No. I'm surprised you asked me that instead of the other question, which would have been, should they be trying to trade up to get a quarterback, which I would also say, no. I want Pace and Nagy and Phillips to ride out the string this year, have this team suck, and have them all be fired. And frankly, I don't know why any Bears fan would sit there and want anything else. And if your thing is, well, I can't root against them. Well, by rooting for them to win meaningless games, go fucking 8-8 again, you actually are rooting against them. You gotta think a little longer term vision here. Not that hard to do. At Ad Sales Savant asked, did the Dolphins make a mistake by not taking a quarterback this year? I know they have a shit ton of picks, but none of it matters if Tua can't cut the mustard. To your second part, that's a great call out. If Tua can't cut the mustard, it doesn't matter. Period. Like, it will be all for naught. Or they're going to just have to circle the wagons in another year or two and get themselves in a position to take one, which means you're kind of starting the clock over again. As far as did they make a mistake or not, no. I think they've got to do more to at least give Tua an opportunity. The mistake they made was taking Tua instead of Justin Herbert last year, let's be clear. That's who they should have taken. I think even in my final mock draft, if I recall correctly, I had them taking Herbert and the Chargers ending up with Tua, I believe. They picked the wrong quarterback, the way it looks. That said, they've taken him. Nah, I think they did the right thing for what they needed to do. At El Grani, do you think the Bears will address the quarterback position in the first 3 rounds in this year's draft? I think they will. I don't know that it automatically comes in round 1, though. Some names of what I'm thinking of is somebody like a Kellen Mond. Maybe in round 3, somebody like a Jamie Newman. But I'd be surprised if they didn't address it in the first 3 rounds. Are they really going to think going into this season with Dalton and Foles as their only 2 quarterbacks makes sense? You know what I mean? Dane the Funky Homo Sapien, what relatively unknown historical event would make for a great dramatic HBO show or perhaps a documentary? Could concern sports, politics, war, etc. Oh my God. I don't know. Damn, you're making me think on that one. That's a great question. I don't know. Could concern sports, politics, war, relatively unknown historical event. If I was to think of one, maybe I would think a little bit more about Curt Flood and how he got fucked over by baseball and blackballed by baseball, like the pursuit, the drive towards free agency. That's not a great one, but I'm just trying to come up with something in real time. Yeah, it's a great question. At Yas Young Beast, would you take a top 3 wide receiver at 20 if Fields or Lance are gone? Yes. Especially if one of the top 3 receivers, like the top 3 talking about here, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. If one of those 3 were there at 20 and the quarterbacks are gone, then yeah, you got to take them. You got to take them. I doubt any of that happens, so. Jack asks, are you getting the vaccine? I will tell you right now, I plan on it at some point, but I don't see a tremendous urgency to do so at the moment. Just because I'm working from home. I'm working from home through September. I don't go out much. You know, like, I would rather other people that might be at higher risk, other people that may have a bigger need or a bigger desire to get it, I'd rather wait my turn in line and let them go get it. I'm sure I'll get it eventually, but not right now. At Far Side of the Mind, do you see Ryan Pace taking a swing at QB in this draft or possibly trading up? Yes, I can see both being a possibility. Stephen Hilton 92, is this the 21 wide receiver class overrated in your opinion? I'm just starting to evaluate the wide receivers now. I'll have a better answer for this in about a week. My initial instinct is there might be some good depth in this class, but I'm not as confident that necessarily even the big name guys are truly game breakers. I think there might be some guys that are more highly thought of that might be potential busts and disappointments. So yeah, like, it depends on how you define this 2021 wide receiver class, I guess. Justin Moran, how long until MJ tells LeBron he'll never be like him? I don't know if he'll do that. He should. At Johnny Royko, considering your destination predictions for the QB prospects in the draft, who do you think will fit their landing spot best, especially in terms of championship readiness? In terms of championship readiness, if it was Mac Jones going to the 49ers at 3, ultimately, I think he would be the best immediate fit when you're thinking about from a championship mindset. When you think in terms of systematic fits, I think Trevor Lawrence will be a fantastic fit in Urban Meyer's system. He's going to be an Alex Smith with actual arm talent. When I think about the Jets and Zach Wilson, I think projects to pretty much any system. You know what I mean? I think Trey Lance has the most physical upside of any quarterback in this draft, and would surprise me 3 years from now if we're talking about him as the best quarterback from this draft. But you're going to need a team that's going to have to have some strong chops in terms of working with young quarterbacks. You're going to have a situation where you have patience with him, but you could get it. And even with like a Justin Fields, like, I'm not as high as him as maybe some others, for sure. I think he's, as much as anything else, it's less about system, it's more about fit and coaching. Yeah. John Jones. I'm a baseball and football player at Albany State. Yes, sir, you are. And I'm conflicted about which sport to go pro. My coach says I have a better chance of going pro doing baseball, but I love football more. Which should I choose? By the way, love your videos, brother. Well, I think it's this. Like, if you're thinking about it from a football standpoint, you know, like, what position do you play? What size are you? How do your athletic traits translate? And you have to be honest with yourself. You can't just dilute yourself and say, I have this dream or this vision that I'm going to play in the NFL, and then you're a defensive end that's 6 foot, 210 pounds. You can't be Corey Moore-like, and that's probably a name even before your time, going back in the Va Tech days. Holler if you remember Corey Moore. But the point I'm getting at is, like, you have to be realistic about your athletic traits and where you project, etc. Doesn't mean you can't do it. I'm just throwing it out there. If you feel like your skills are better in baseball than they are in football, even if you love football more, the reality is that baseball's draft is much deeper, runs 40, 50, whatever the hell rounds. Like, you have a much better chance of at least getting a foot in the door and going pro in baseball than you would in football. You know, and I think that's one of those things, like, yeah, you can say, well, I truly love football, but if you're not very good at it, I'm not saying you're not, I'm just, if you're not very good at it, but you're great at baseball, but you like baseball, but don't love it, well, sometimes, like, getting paid to do it will make you like it less, or sometimes it'll make you love it more, and sometimes you'll realize that that just doesn't matter that much. So, evaluate where you're at, evaluate your skills, evaluate your chances in both sports, and maybe it makes sense to stop playing both and only playing one instead. Let's see here. J. Olba 23. Will Mike Trout's legacy be impacted by his lack of postseason appearances, or does the front office shoulder much of the blame for failing to put sufficient talent around him? Yes to both. Yes to both. It's a tragedy that Trout hasn't been on more championship contending teams, more playoff teams. It will hurt his legacy, no question. No question. And it does fall squarely on the front office. I'm Stephen Shea. You got to F1, marry one, kill one. Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Tua Tagovailoa. If I'm thinking about quarterbacks for my team, you're probably effing Joe Burrow, you're marrying Justin Herbert, and you're killing off Tua Tagovailoa. El Grani asks, what should the Bengals do with the 5th pick? Take somebody on the offensive side of the ball, potentially explore trading back. They need quite a bit of talent, so if they were to trade back somewhere, let's say from 5 to 8, because Carolina wanted to trade up to get somebody like a Trey Lance, let's say, you could potentially squeeze like an extra 2nd or 3rd round pick out of that. Why wouldn't you? And you could take whatever best available offensive player you can get at 8. Whether it's Penei Sewell, whether it's Rashawn Slater, whether that's a Waddle or a Chase or Devontae Smith, like whoever, maybe it's a Kyle Pitts, like whoever you fancy there. It's somebody on the offensive side of the ball is what they should do in the first round, whether that comes at pick 5 or they trade back. Rick Styles, 1985, since the Utah Jazz will probably lock up the 1 seed in the West, do you think they can finally break through the glass ceiling? Or is this another good season that goes nowhere like always? Man, it'd be cool to see them make it there, but I just don't know if I could fully buy in and believe. Like a healthy Lakers team will beat them in the playoffs. I think perhaps Denver will beat them in the playoffs. I'd like to believe that they could, but I don't know. At Free Speech is Why. Is this Dave Gettleman and Daniel Jones' last year to turn things around and make the playoffs? I certainly think it is for Dave Gettleman, and it might be for Daniel Jones. A Wiggy 000, thoughts on the Vucevic trade? On the Vucevic trade, I will say this. Now, I already did a video about it. You should check it out on this channel. But the reality was the Bulls won too many games this year when you got to the trade deadline to think that their draft pick was going to end up incredibly high to get like a real difference maker in the draft. So they had to look at it and say, you know what, we've got a chance to improve our team, get a second scorer, potentially make the playoffs. You know, you look up some of the other players they gave up. You don't feel like you're really missing anything. They gave up a 2021 first rounder, a 2023 first rounder. The 2021 pick wasn't going to be great anyways. The 2023 pick with the trade's not going to be great anyways. So it feels like you didn't trade a whole lot and you got a lot back in return. So I fundamentally don't have a problem with the trade. It still doesn't address the problems of who's your point guard long term. It still doesn't address the problems of who the hell's going to defend on that team. But it feels like a deal they had to make. They're 0-4 since the trade, you know, as at the time of the recording of this, but, you know, it was hard to knock them for that deal. It was a situation and position that they were in. I felt like they kind of had to. Dylan Schwartz, what would Breeze and Peyton's legacy, Sean Payton he means, legacies be if they didn't recover the onside kick? God, that's one of those fascinating questions. I still think they would be heroes in New Orleans because they still made that team relevant, brought it to heights it had never experienced before and may never experience again. But yeah, they wouldn't be champions, so that would certainly impact the legacy just a little bit. At K_Nokaj, are we doomed to a Lakers-Nets finals? I don't know if we're doomed to it. It's a possibility, but it's certainly not a guarantee. I don't even know if it's a likelihood. It's just a possibility at this point. And do you respect a player like a Dame Lillard for trying to win on one team versus ring chasing? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Now, if he wanted to go ring chase, he's certainly entitled and empowered to do so. He has the leverage and the flexibility to be able to do it, then more power to him. Doesn't mean I have to like it, but it doesn't mean it's going to ruin my day or anything. But yeah, I respect the hell out of him for trying to be loyal to one organization, for trying to sit there and be truly the guy that a team is built around and trying to build something. I like that. Mojo Jojo 1104. Who screwed up their organization worse? Bill O'Brien with the Texans or Chip Kelly with the Eagles? It's Bill O'Brien with the Texans, and it's not close. He traded away DeAndre Hopkins and didn't even get a fucking first-round pick in return. He gave up multiple first-round picks for a left tackle in Laramie Tunsil. Chip Kelly was bad, but yet a few years later, after he left, they won the Super Bowl. How much damage did he really do to the organization? At Mark_Whalen67, do you think it's feasible for the Miami Dolphins trade back from 6 to, say, 8 with the Panthers? Still get one of Chase and Pitts and acquire even more draft picks in 2022 and maybe 2023? Potentially, but at some point in time, you got to make some decisions and just take some guys. Yeah, certainly, they could trade back, I think, from 6 to 8. Maybe they'll pick up like a 3rd round or 4th round pick in return, but is that really worth it at that point? Especially because you can't guarantee yourself that Detroit is pointing away from a different position at 7. So, it's feasible, but would I encourage it or recommend it? I don't think I would. At NativeClown03, how many years does Matt Ryan have left playing at a starting QB level? My money would say right now 3 to 4. 3 to 4. At Kazia185, will Space Jam 2 be better than the first Space Jam? The fuck you think? Hashtag boycott Space Jam 2. Fucking hot garbage. Look, we took LeBron and dropped him into a Ready Player One movie. Hoo-hoo. And of course the story is all centered around something directly involving LeBron James. Selfish ass. As opposed to Michael Jordan saving the universe from the basketball-playing aliens. I mean, I had Sean Bradley's powers. We're doomed! But no, we're going to save my son. See, it's always fucking about him. Typical. Then, of course, he's trying to construct a super team. Big shock there. Fuck that movie. Derek asks, what do you think the Chicago Bulls have to do to become a competitor next season? A competitor/contender? They would have to get a couple of things. They have to get a legit point guard that can play some defense. You know, so a lot of people are going to point to Alonzo Ball and that he might be the answer. They need another post guy with some versatility that can defend and block some shots and be a presence down low. They need Patrick Williams to be able to develop and be more aggressive, assertive, and consistent. Like people keep talking about the upside. Yeah, at some point in time, I want to see it more consistently. You get these brief flashes in the pans, and he's just quiet and kind of hides off in the corner. Now, fuck that. You were the 4th overall pick. Time to step up. If some of those things happen, like the Bulls could be improved a lot next year. Blackspace99, after seeing what the Chicago Bears supposedly offered the Sea Chickens for us, would you be upset if the Bears offered a similar trade to the Jets to get pick 2 to take either Lawrence or Wilson? If it was a different GM making it, maybe not. If it's this GM, yeah, I'd have a problem with it. Does it mean he'd be potentially sticking around? It means he'd potentially be depleting future drafts for the next general manager, so I wouldn't be as big of a fan of it as you might think. Josh Grantham 7. If you started a franchise, what and who would be the offensive players you would pick over Aaron Donald? You're going to go quarterback, so I will go with Mahomes, obviously. I'm going to assume all the shit with Deshaun Watson off the field is bullshit, so I'm going to say Deshaun Watson. I will certainly take a Justin Herbert, because again, I'm talking about not just level of play, but I'm also talking about talent, number of years, etc. Like, I'm choosing guys to build a franchise around over Aaron Donald, especially on the offensive side ball. I'm going all quarterback, because they potentially have the longest shelf life. At Willow Birch Luke, as a Packers fan, I accept our time ruling the NFC North may well be drawing to a close soon. Who do you think is the best position to take that mantle when the time comes? Why would you assume that? Why wouldn't you think that potentially Jordan Love could be the next great Green Bay Packers quarterback? Why automatically assume? I'm just saying. I don't know if any of the other three teams are well positioned because none of them have the long-term, big-time franchise quarterback in the wings. It might be the Packers are the best situated in the long term to continue to run the NFC North or run the NFC North. MC17 Clark, out of these three NFL draft busts, who's the worst one and why? Ryan Leaf, Achilles Smith, or Jamarcus Russell? Jamarcus Russell because he was taken number one overall in a really good 2007 draft. Like he was taken ahead of guys such as Calvin Johnson and Adrian Peterson and Marshawn Lynch. Like that. That's by far the worst of the three. Peter Kuzmenko, can you see quarterbacks being selected with the top 4 picks? Yes, I can. Mags, the NFL nerd. What's your opinion of the NFL going to a 17-game regular season? I'm not in love with it just because it's another regular season. It means it extends the Super Bowl another week into February, but I can deal with it and adjust to it. My bigger thing is the players, if this is going to happen, they better make sure that if we're playing 6% more games, they better get 6% more fucking pay. And if they don't, then they're morons for doing so. Ncyple99, which Chicago sports team is most likely to win a championship in the next 2 to 4 years? The way it currently stands at the moment, it would be the White Sox. Johnny B's good. What New York Yankees team do you think is the best in the Derek Jeter era? The best one, obviously, has got to be the 98 team. Like, they were a fucking juggernaut and a powerhouse. What a great team. A combination of young talent that you brought up through your farm system, which happened to be the time that Steinbrenner was suspended from the league and not directly involved with running the team and in charge of the team, with some of the great veterans, especially in that starting rotation. That 98 team was the best, clearly. My favorite of those Yankees teams from that 96 to 2001 run, specifically, because that team made 5 World Series in 6 years. I think my favorite team of theirs is 96. That's where you had the whole Tony Tarasco, what was it, Jeffrey Mayer was a fucking 12-year-old kid in that LDS series against Baltimore. Like, they were down 2-0. I remember the huge home run by Jim Leyritz in that World Series. Like, I go on and on and on. My favorite team to watch from that was 96. The best team was 98. Loso SPN, as a Patriots fan, this upcoming draft is very essential. Agree with that. With the report that the Patriots are high on Justin Fields, do you think it would be wise to try to get to the Falcons pick to get him or stay at 15 to get Mac Jones? Because we know Stidham isn't that dude once Cam leaves. Agree on that. As far as Fields, they might make sense for them to trade up a little for him, but I don't think they have to go all the way up to 4 to get him. But maybe they do. Like, I don't know what to think at this point. Big Head Fred 2040. You feel like Daniel Jones outperformed your draft grade on him? Would I have like a 2nd to 3rd round grade on him? So fuck no, he didn't. He could still, but he has not at this point. Tyrese Wilson 461. What does Jamar Chase's 4.34 mean for him? Because he showed a lack of deep speed in 2019 film, but it seems he got faster. Number one, don't put too much stock in those bullshit-ass pro day timings this year. There's no consistent standard. Number two, I think Jamar Chase had good speed. Like, he didn't have, like, Jalen Waddle type of truly explosive pow, bam, boom vertical speed. But Jamar Chase has speed. Like, he wasn't a lead foot. Speed is not a significant question for me with Jamar Chase. I'm good with his speed. I think he has plenty of it. He has more than enough. He has more speed than he maybe has burst or quickness. Like, that would be a little bit more of a concern. But even then, I don't think that's a concern about Jamar Chase that I'm that focused on. But he has enough speed. I think the 4.34 is bullshit. Like, I could have seen, if you told me he ran in the mid 4.4s, I would say, you know what? When I watch him in 2019, I see a 4.45 to 4.48 guy, which is plenty fast enough in the NFL, to be clear. Some guy 407 closes us out. Should the Patriots trade up for a QB in this year's draft or stand pat and take someone like Micah Parsons? Trade up if the right deal and the right quarterback is there. That's the answer. Wow, 25 minutes. All right, it looks like we got through most everybody's questions here that I could see. Thank you, everybody, for submitting your questions. A reminder, follow me on Twitter, subscribe to the channel. I have a mock draft coming up Monday afternoon/evening, and then we'll start seeing more prospect scouting reports coming up throughout the week. Now, next up is, since I've done all the quarterbacks, you should check those out. We're moving on to the wide receivers. So, see you later.